I want you to just think for a second. Well, maybe don't close your eyes if you're driving, but imagine the absolute maxed out stats for a human being.
The perfect run.
The perfect run in the game of life, exactly. If you could max out every single potential a human has, what would that even look like?
That's it. I mean, that's a massive question to start with, the question of human potential.
Right. And I don't mean perfect, like you know, you never parallel park crookedly. I mean, what is the absolute peak of existence? Is it about getting cosmic superpowers, knowing the secret code of the universe? Or is it something else entirely?
Or is it being a strictly obedient, humble servant who just follows the rules perfectly?
And never steps out of line.
That tension, it sounds like a philosophical trap, but it's actually the engine behind almost every religious tradition. And today, we're looking at a very specific, very high-stakes version of this debate.
We're heading back to the medieval Islamic world to witness a real clash of titans. We're doing a deep dive into a brand new source, a memorial volume from this year, 2026, called Sanctity et héritage prophétique en Islam.
Which translates to Sainthood and Prophetic Inheritance in Islam. It's a heavy title, I know. But the content is incredibly grounding.
It really is. The book is dedicated to the late French scholar Michel Chodkiewicz, who is an absolute giant in this field. But we're focusing on one chapter in particular by Alexander Chi.
Degrees of Human Perfection and Sainthood.
And Knish basically sets up a cage match between two medieval heavyweights who had completely opposite ideas of what a friend of God even looks like.
We're talking about Ibn al-ʿArabī and Ibn Taymiyya. And before you tune out thinking, you know, this is just dusty history.
Right.
Knish's whole argument is that these two definitions of perfection are actually the secret decoder ring for understanding religious diversity today. Not just in Islam, but in Judaism, Christianity, and, well, honestly, even in secular spirituality.
So our mission today is to understand these two archetypes, the cosmic bridge and, well, the pious baker. But first, we have to set the stage. We're in the medieval Islamic world. Was there, like, a standard definition of a saint back then?
Oh, far from it. That's the first thing Knish really drives home. It was a conceptual free-for-all. You had philosophers, theologians, mystics, jurists, all throwing their hats in the ring.
The definitions were wild. I stumbled across one in the text from the 10th century from a group called the Brethren of Purity.
Ah, yes.
It sounds like they were trying to build a superhuman by committee.
The eclectic ideal. It's a fascinating snapshot of the time.
Listen to this list. They said the ideal man is Persian in derivation, Arab in faith, Greek in science, Indian in interpretation. And it just keeps going.
And it ends with, but a Sufi in his whole spiritual life.
A Sufi in his whole spiritual life. It's like the yes and approach to perfection.
They wanted it all. The intellectual rigor of the Greeks, the deep interiority of the Sufis, the religious grounding of the Arabs. It just shows how cosmopolitan that world was.
But, you know, as time went on, that buffet-style spirituality started to settle into camps. And that brings us to our two contenders.
In the red corner, we have the heavyweight champion of mysticism, Ibn al-Arabi, often called al-Sheikh al-Akbar, or the Grand Master, died in 1240. If you like metaphysics and the idea that humans are cosmic royalty, he's your guy.
And in the blue corner, the challenger, Ibn Taymiyya,
who comes a bit later, died in 1328. He's the champion of the traditionalist view, the anti-elitist, the scripturalist. If you believe perfection is about keeping your head down and following the text, you're on Team Taymiyya.
Okay, let's start with Ibn al-Arabi, because when I read his description of the perfect human al-Insan al-Kamil, it didn't sound like a person I could meet for coffee.
Yeah, not at all. It's incredibly grand. For Ibn al-Arabi, a saint isn't just a good person who prays a lot. The perfect human is the axis of existence. He is the center of the universe.
This is where my brain started to melt a little bit. He calls them a bridge, right? Barzakh.
Exactly. Think of it this way. In his view, God, the ultimate truth, Allah, he's so infinite, so absolute, that there's this huge ontological gap between him and the fragile world we live in. You need a connector.
A transformer.
A transformer, that's a great way to put it. Something that can step down that high-voltage divinity into something the world can handle. And that is the saint.
The source used this analogy of the ring and the seal, which I found really helpful.
This is his most famous metaphor. Ibn al-Arabi says the saint is to the world what a signet seal is to a ring. In a medieval kingdom, the seal wasn't just jewelry.
Right, it was security.
It was used to secure the king's treasure. As long as that seal is stamped and unbroken and the treasure is safe.
And the treasure in this analogy is the whole world.
Yes. The perfect human, literally preserves the universe. Ibn al-Arabi argues that if the earth were ever emptied of these perfect saints, the cosmos would collapse. They are this synthetic exemplar.
Synthetic exemplar, that sounds so technical, almost like a sci-fi term. Break that down.
It means they are a synthesis, a summary of everything. So God has these divine names: the merciful, the powerful, the knower. The universe reflects these in bits and pieces. A mountain might reflect the firm. A flower reflects the beautiful.
Okay.
But the perfect human. They are a mirror that reflects all of those attributes at once, perfectly. They're a microcosm of God's own nature.
Wow. That is an unbelievable amount of pressure. I mean, if you're the glue holding reality together, you'd have to be flawless, right? No mistakes.
You would think so. But this is where Ibn al-Arabi pulls a fast one, and it's one of the most surprising parts of Nish's chapter. He talks about slippage.
This stopped me in my tracks. He essentially says that even these high-level saints can mess up, they can sin, and it's okay.
It's more than okay. It might actually be necessary for their perfection. Ibn al-Arabi argues that sometimes a saint commits an error, but because they are so attuned to reality, that slip becomes a vehicle for humility.
So falling down actually helps you climb higher.
In a way, yes. If you were truly flawless, you would never experience God's forgiveness. You wouldn't truly understand the divine name, the forgiver. So the error integrates into your perfection. It becomes a lesson.
It's incredibly sophisticated.
Yeah.
You have this hidden government of saints, the poles, the substitutes running the universe, and their internal struggles are what keep the lights on. It's so mysterious and elitist.
And you can see how that might annoy someone who prefers things, well, simpler.
Enter Ibn Taymiyya.
Right. If Ibn al-Arabi is playing 4D chess with the cosmos, Ibn Taymiyya is playing checkers, and he thinks Ibn al-Arabi is cheating.
The contrast could not be sharper. Kanish calls Ibn Taymiyya's approach the democratization of sainthood. It feels like he's looking at all this cosmic bridge stuff and just saying, who do you people think you are?
Precisely. He hates the elitism. He hates the idea of some secret club of super saints. For Ibn Taymiyya, a wali, a friend of God, is simple. It's a pious believer.
The list in the text was great. He says a saint can be a soldier, a merchant, a baker.
A baker, a governor. He's stripping away all the metaphysics. You don't need to be a cosmic bridge. You just need to obey the Qur'ān and follow the sunnah of the Prophet's example.
So if you're a baker who doesn't cheat his customers and prays 5 times a day, you're closer to perfection than some mystic in a cave.
Much closer. In his view, yes.
It feels almost Protestant in a way, the priesthood of all believers.
There are definite parallels.
Yeah.
It's accessible to everyone. You don't need a special initiation.
But he does have a gatekeeping side. He really goes after the God's fools crowd.
Oh, absolutely. In the medieval world, you had these so-called holy fools people who were so drunk on God that they stopped following the rules.
Right. They wouldn't pray. They'd act crazy. And some people revered them for it.
Ibn Taymiyya has zero tolerance for that. He draws a hard line. He says, if you don't pray, you aren't a saint. Period. He calls it antinomianism, being against the law. For him, perfection is about sincere devotion and obedience. It's about control, not losing control.
He also completely flips the timeline. Ibn al-Arabi has this vertical hierarchy that exists right now. Ibn Taymiyya looks backward.
That's his hierarchy of time. For him, perfection isn't renewable. The absolute peak of human existence was the Prophet Muhammad. Everyone else is ranked by how close they stood to him in history.
So it's a graph that it only goes down.
It only goes down, exactly. Abu Bakr's the best, then Umar, then the companions. Every generation after that is progressively diminished. Can't be better today than someone who walked with the Prophet.
Which explains his view on jihad, right? The greater jihad versus the lesser jihad.
That's a famous Sufi distinction. Many mystics say the greater jihad is the internal war against your ego. The physical war is secondary.
And Ibn Taymiyya says?
He looks at that and says no. He prefers action. He argues that active service, struggling for the community, yes, armed struggle against infidels, that is peak perfection. Why? Because that's what the companions did. They were active. They were building a society.
So we have the cosmic bridge versus the pious baker, the mystic versus the activist. But the real fireworks in Kanish's chapter happen when we get to imagination.
This is the battle of the mind. It all centers on the concept of khayal, or imagination.
Okay, we need to be careful here. When Ibn al-Arabi says imagination, he doesn't mean like make-believe.
Correct. For him, the imaginal realm is a valid, objective plane of existence. It sits between the physical world and the spiritual world. It's a land of truth. It's where abstract meanings take on shapes.
So if a saint has a vision in this realm, an unveiling or kash, that's hard data to him.
As real as the microscope, maybe more so. It's a source of direct knowledge from God.
And Ibn Taymiyya, let's just say he is not a subscriber to that channel.
He thinks the channel is hacked. He calls imagination Satan's favorite playground.
There's a quote in the source that made me laugh out loud because it was so visceral. He compares this realm of imagination to, well, it wasn't a flattering list.
He compares it to latrines, public baths, and hashish dens.
Hashish dens. That is a very specific burn for a medieval theologian.
It is a brutal takedown. He's saying when you let your imagination run wild, you aren't connecting to God. You're opening yourself up to delusion, to demonic influence. You think you're seeing angels, but you're just seeing your own desires projected on the wall.
And this is why he gets so angry about the Seal of Saints idea.
That's the core heresy charge. Ibn al-Arabi and others talked about a seal of saints, someone who culminates all sainthood. Ibn Taymiyya saw that as a direct threat to the Prophet Muhammad.
Because if a saint can get direct news from God through their imagination, then who needs a prophet?
Exactly. It bypasses the scripture. It creates a backdoor to the divine. Ibn Taymiyya insists that saints cannot claim direct knowledge independent of the Qur'ān. He's protecting the monopoly of revelation.
It's safety versus discovery. Ibn Taymiyya offers a safe, paved road with guardrails. Ibn al-Arabi offers a rocket ship that might explode.
But it might also take you to the stars. That's a great way to put it.
So, Alexander Nish, the author, he pivots here. We've spent this time in the 13th century, but he argues this isn't just history. He says this debate is crucial for modern interfaith dialogue. Why?
It's about combating essentialism.
Essentialism, so. The idea that Islam is just one thing.
Right. You hear it constantly in media or politics. Islam is a religion of absolute submission and law. Or, on the other hand, true Islam is purely mystical and peaceful, Nish says. Look at these two guys. They're both giants, both orthodox, and they're completely different.
So Islam isn't a monolith.
Exactly. It contains both the Akbarian view, transformative, mystical, and the Taymiyyan view, ethical, obedient.
And realizing that helps when you're talking to a Christian or a Jew.
Immensely. Because their religions have the exact same split. It allows you to map the terrain of faith much more accurately.
I see where he's going. The source mentioned the tension in Judaism specifically.
Think about Kabbalah. The figure of the tzaddik is almost identical to Ibn al-Arabi's perfect human and cosmic pillar sustaining the world. But then you have someone like Maimonides, the rationalist, who's all about law and intellect.
Maimonides looks a lot like Ibn Taymiyya.
He does. So a Jewish rationalist and a Muslim Salafi might actually have more in common, structurally, than they do with the mystics in their own traditions.
And a Christian mystic who loves the cloud of unknowing might vibe better with a Sufi.
Than with his own local pastor who focuses strictly on church rules and doctrine.
Exactly. It creates these cross-border alliances. You stop seeing Muslim versus Christian and start seeing mystic versus legalist across the board.
And Krish points out that Ibn al-Arabi's metaphysics offers huge resources for pluralism. If God is infinite, he reveals himself in infinite ways. Religious diversity isn't a bug, it's a feature.
That sounds great for the dialogue crowd, but what does Ibn Taymiyya offer? He seems less open.
He's less open theologically, sure, but he offers a different bridge. His ethical universalism.
The Baker argument again.
Yes. If what matters is doing good works and being honest, that resonates deeply with virtue ethics. You can build an alliance on orthopraxy, correct action. You can say, we may disagree on God, but we both agree on feeding the poor.
So you can build bridges using either model. You just have to know which tool you're using.
But, and this is a big but that Nish insists on, we have to avoid cherry picking.
The warning label.
It is very tempting for modern folks to look at Ibn al-Arabi and say he's the inclusive hero and look at Ibn Taymiyya as the strict villain.
But the reality is much messier.
So much messier. Ibn al-Arabi was still a Muslim particularist. He believed Islam was the superior revelation. And Ibn Taymiyya was deeply concerned with justice and protecting the common believer from charlatans. He was trying to empower the average person.
We have to engage them as they were, not as we want them to be.
Exactly. We have to respect the integrity of their arguments.
Before we wrap up, I do want to take a moment for the man this whole volume is honoring, Michel Chotkevitz.
He was a remarkable figure, a French scholar who really embodied this kind of bridge. He was a rigorous academic, but he also had a deep personal spiritual commitment to these texts.
He's the one who really brought Ibn al-Arabi to the West in a serious way.
Books like Seal of the Saints and Ocean Without Shore completely changed the game. But what I appreciate most is that he insisted on rooting Ibn al-Arabi in the Qur'an. He showed that these wild cosmic ideas weren't just hallucinations. They were hyper-close readings of the scripture.
So let's bring this all home. We have walked down two very different roads today in our search for the perfect human.
We have the road of the cosmic bridge, the Akbarian path. This is where the human being expands. You become a mirror for God. You sustain the universe. It's a path of expansion, imagination, and cosmic function.
And we have the road of the obedient servant, the Taymiyyan path. This is where the human being shrinks into absolute servitude. You find perfection in humility, in history, in sticking to the script.
And in being a good baker. It's a path of safety, action, and clear boundaries.
Both claim to lead to the truth. Both have shaped the Islamic world for 800 years. And really, they've both shaped the human experience.
That's the crux of it. The tension isn't just in the history books. It's in the human condition. We all have days where we want to feel connected to the cosmos and days where we just want a clear set of rules.
So here is my final thought for you listening. If you had to choose a definition of perfection for your own life right now, would you rather be the seal that preserves the king's treasure, expanding your soul to mirror the cosmos?
Or would you rather be the baker who simply, quietly, and perfectly follows the recipe?
Expansion or servitude? Which one feels more like perfection to you? Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.